Sister wives. Robyn and her children are kicked out as Kody realizes she destroyed the family. Hello, friends. Welcome to the Daily Gossip News Update. I'm Olivia, and I hope you're well by God's grace. Please subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon for more updates. The quiet streets of Flagstaff were buzzing with whispers and judgmental glances as the latest news from the Brown family's world leaked into the public eye. Robyn Brown, the once beloved fourth wife of Kody Brown, and her children had been told, to leave the home they had shared with Kody. After years of tension, heartbreak, and drama, Kody finally admitted what his other wives, his children, and even his fans had known for years. Robyn destroyed his family. But this was no simple eviction, and it was certainly no ordinary heartbreak. This was the fallout of years of manipulation, favoritism, and denial. And as Robyn tearfully packed up her things and her children stood confused and devastated, Kody sat in silence, staring out over Coyote Pass, finally confronting the mess he himself had allowed to fester. The beginning of the end. For years, fans of Sister Wives had watched as cracks appeared in Kody Brown's once proud plural marriage. What started as a loving, cooperative family of 4 wives and 18 children began unraveling the day Robyn joined the family. At first, Robyn seemed to breathe new life into Kody. He glowed around her. He laughed more, smiled more, spoke more softly when she was in the room. The other wives, Mary, Janelle, and Christine, tried to swallow their hurt feelings, convincing themselves that Kody was simply enamored with something new, that this infatuation would wear off. But it didn't. Over the years, the favoritism became glaringly obvious. Robyn's children received more gifts at Christmas. Robyn's home got the most attention when it came time to buy furniture, appliances, and decor. Kody spent more nights at her house than the other wives combined. Robyn's needs always seemed to trump the others. Janelle and Christine began to withdraw emotionally. Mary stayed longer than perhaps she should have, holding on to some faint hope that she and Kody could repair their fractured bond. Meanwhile, Robyn grew bolder, more demanding, and less subtle about her place in Kody's world. And then the pandemic hit. A family divided. COVID-19 became the perfect storm that laid bare everything wrong in the Brown family dynamic. Kody, under the guise of keeping everyone safe, began spending all his time at Robyn's house. He imposed harsh rules on his other wives and children, refusing to see them if they dared to interact with the outside world. The other wives chafed under his double standards. Christine decided she'd had enough and left. Janelle, too, reached her breaking point, choosing independence over subservience. Even Mary, long the quiet sufferer, declared she was moving on. But through it all, Kody refused to see the common thread. He blamed his other wives. He blamed his kids. He blamed society, the media, everyone except the one person standing at the center of it all, Robyn. For years, he refused to hear what everyone was saying. That Robyn's manipulations, her subtle undermining of the other wives, her monopolization of his time and affection, had destroyed the family from the inside out. Until now. The breaking point. It wasn't just the wives who noticed the imbalance, the kids did too. Kody's older children began to speak out, accusing him of neglect, of abandoning them emotionally in favor of Robyn and her kids. Garrison and Gabriel, Janelle's boys, went public with their feelings of betrayal. Even his daughters from his earlier marriages began to keep their distance, bitter about how little time he spent with them compared to how much he lavished on Robyn's family. Finally, even Robyn's kids couldn't hide from the tension. They felt the judgment of the siblings they barely knew. They watched their mother grow more defensive, more isolated, more paranoid. And then came the final straw. When Kody's finances collapsed under the weight of maintaining multiple households, paying off debts, and buying land, Robyn suggested that they sell off the other wives' properties and keep just their home. That suggestion, leaked to the other wives by one of the older children, was the last betrayal. The confrontation. It all came to a head one muggy July evening. Kody called a family meeting, not just with Robyn, but with Janelle, Mary, and even Christine, who had already moved on with her new husband, David Woolley. The kids were invited too. They gathered at Coyote Pass, standing in the shadow of the undeveloped land that had come to symbolize broken promises and failed dreams. Kody, visibly shaken, finally spoke the words no one thought they'd ever hear from his lips. "I was wrong." At first, there was silence. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. He looked at each wife, one by one. His eyes were red-rimmed, his jaw tight. "I let this family fall apart. I let my feelings for Robyn blind me to what I was doing to all of you. I hurt my kids. I hurt you. And I'm sorry." Robyn stood frozen, clutching her youngest child, her face pale.
Christine was the first to speak.
"You let her destroy us," she said flatly. Kody nodded. "I know. And I'm taking responsibility now." He turned to Robyn. "I think it's best if you and your kids find somewhere else to live. At least for now. I need to try to rebuild what I've broken. And I can't do that with you here." Robyn gasped as though he'd struck her. You can't mean that," she whispered. But he did. The aftermath. The next few weeks were a flurry of moving trucks, hushed conversations, and public scrutiny. Paparazzi camped outside Robyn's house as she packed boxes and ushered her children into cars. She avoided eye contact with neighbors, who watched silently from their porches. Robyn's kids were confused, hurt, and angry. They didn't understand why their mother, who had always told them they were the heart of the family, was suddenly persona non grata. Meanwhile, Kody began making amends. He visited Janelle and helped her fix a broken fence at her rental home. He spent time with Gabriel and Garrison, apologizing to them in person. He took Mary to lunch, just the two of them, and acknowledged how deeply he'd failed her. And perhaps most remarkably, he sat down with Christine and her husband, David, and asked for their forgiveness. He admitted to David that he'd been jealous and petty, and that he'd failed to be the kind of husband Christine deserved. Robyn speaks. For weeks, Robyn stayed silent, refusing to speak to the press, avoiding even her own family members. But eventually, she gave an emotional interview to a local reporter. Through tears, she claimed she was being scapegoated. "I never wanted to hurt anyone," she sobbed. "I just wanted my kids to feel safe and loved. I didn't destroy the family, they pushed me out because they couldn't handle Kody loving me." But the words rang hollow. The damage was already done. Kody's new resolve. With Robyn and her children out of the house, Kody began to reflect on what he wanted his legacy to be. For years, he'd clung to his idea of family as something he controlled, a patriarch at the center of it all. But now he understood that true family was about balance, respect, and love for everyone, not just the person who made him feel young again. He threw himself into repairing relationships with his older kids, spending time with his grandchildren, and even attending therapy with his remaining wives to learn how to communicate better. The children speak out. One by one, the Brown children began to open up about what life had been like under Robyn's shadow. Aspen, Christine's daughter, spoke candidly. "It always felt like we didn't matter as much. Like Robyn's kids were his real family, and we were just there." Leon, Mary's child, was more blunt. "She played the long game and she won, until she didn't." Even Dayton, Robyn's eldest son, admitted he had mixed feelings. "I love my mom, but I saw what was happening. I knew my siblings and I got more attention. It felt wrong, but what could I do?" Robyn eventually moved into a modest rental home on the outskirts of town. She kept a low profile, focusing on her kids and trying to rebuild her own sense of self-worth outside of her identity as Kody's favorite. Kody, for his part, began taking steps toward healing. He organized family dinners, sometimes awkward, sometimes beautiful, where all his kids were invited. He worked on the Coyote Pass land, finally breaking ground on a modest communal space where his kids and grandkids could gather. He still spent time with Robyn's children, but he made it clear that his love and attention belonged to all his kids equally. The story of Kody and Robyn Brown is not just a cautionary tale about favoritism or neglect, it's about accountability. For years, Kody refused to see the truth because it was easier to blame everyone else than to confront his own choices. But by finally admitting his mistakes, by asking Robyn to leave and beginning to rebuild what he'd broken, Kody proved that even deeply flawed people can grow. As for Robyn, perhaps she, too, will one day see her part in what happened and find her own path to redemption. The family today. Months later, the family dynamics remain complicated but hopeful. Christine and David are thriving, happy in their new marriage and home. Janelle is enjoying her independence, but remains close with Kody as a friend and co-parent. Mary has even begun dating again, while maintaining a cordial relationship with Kody. And the children, though still healing, are slowly learning to trust their father again. When Robyn and her children were finally asked to leave, it wasn't an act of cruelty. It was an act of courage. Kody finally broke the toxic cycle that had been suffocating his family for years. He chose to face the truth. He chose his children, his wives, and himself over the illusion of perfection that Robyn represented. And in doing so, he finally began to piece together the family he'd always dreamed of, one that wasn't perfect, but was finally honest, balanced, and real. Sister wives. Kody devastated after Mary and Janelle refused to help him financially. In the once serene desert town of Flagstaff, Arizona, where the sprawling mountains watched over the homes below, Kody Brown sat alone in the quiet of his living room. His head rested in his hands, his usually fiery energy dulled into something heavy and hollow. This wasn't the man the world had come to know on Sister Wives. This wasn't the confident patriarch who once stood proudly at the center of 4 marriages, 18 children, and a sprawling family empire. This was a man defeated, financially, emotionally, spiritually. And it all came to a breaking point the moment Mary and Janelle, the 2 wives he once thought he could always count on, refused to bail him out of the financial disaster he'd created for himself. The rise and fall of Kody's dream. For years, Kody prided himself on his ability to provide for his large family. He juggled multiple wives, homes, children, and all the complicated logistics of plural marriage with something resembling grace, at least at first. When the family relocated from Utah to Nevada, then to Arizona, Kody assured everyone that these moves would bring new opportunities. He bought land on Coyote Pass with visions of a single massive home where the entire family could live under one roof. But those dreams never materialized. Instead, Kody watched his family splinter into separate households. His vision of unity slipped away as his relationships with Christine, then Janelle, and finally even Mary deteriorated. And as the emotional bonds frayed, so did the family finances. Robyn's spending spree. A significant part of Kody's financial woes stemmed from his decision to invest most of the family's resources into Robyn's household. While his other wives settled for modest rentals and made do with second-hand furniture and tight budgets, Robyn's house stood out. Lavishly furnished, beautifully maintained, with plenty of room for her and her children. It wasn't just the house. Robyn also insisted on private schooling for her kids, expensive vacations, and constant upgrades to her lifestyle. And Kody, blinded by his feelings for her, never said no. The other wives noticed. So did the children. The breaking point. As the family's debts mounted, Kody grew desperate. He took out loans, sold off assets, and tried to negotiate better terms for the Coyote Pass land. But it wasn't enough. When the bank called to inform him that he was in danger of defaulting on the mortgage for Robyn's house, Kody realized he needed help, and fast. For the first time in years, he swallowed his pride and reached out to the 2 wives who, despite their strained relationships with him, had always been responsible with money, Mary and Janelle. He was certain they would help him. After all, hadn't they stood by him through everything? The conversation with Mary. Kody called Mary first. He drove to her modest rental house on the outskirts of town, rehearsing what he would say the entire way. Mary greeted him at the door, her expression neutral but wary. She invited him in and offered him tea, which he declined. Once seated, Kody launched into his plea. "Mary, I know things between us haven't been great, but I'm in trouble. Robyn's house, the mortgage, gets overdue. The bank is threatening foreclosure. I just need a little help to get caught up." Mary listened quietly, her hands folded in her lap. When he finished, she simply shook her head. "Kody, I can't help you," she said firmly. Kody's eyes widened. He hadn't expected that. What do you mean you can't? Mary, we're still family. Mary took a deep breath. We were family. But you made it clear a long time ago that I wasn't part of your life anymore. You humiliated me, neglected me, and made me feel like a stranger in my own home. You chose Robyn every single time. And now you want me to bail you out so you can keep supporting her lavish lifestyle? No, Kody. I won't do it. Her words cut deep. Kody tried to argue, to remind her of their history, but she stood her ground. You made your choices. Now live with them, she said, showing him to the door. The conversation with Janelle. Shaken but not defeated, Kody went to see Janelle next. Surely she would understand. Janelle had always been level-headed, practical, and dedicated to the family's well-being. But as he sat across from her in her small kitchen, he began to realize she, too, was not the woman he remembered. Janelle, please, he begged. I need your help. Robyn and the kids will lose their home if we don't act fast. You've always been good with money. Can you loan me enough to cover the payments? Janelle raised an eyebrow. Loan you? Or give you? Because, let's be real, you've never paid back anything you've borrowed from me. Kody flushed. This time will be different. I swear. Janelle shook her head. No, Kody. I won't do it. You ignored me when I needed you. You ignored our kids. You chose Robyn over all of us every single time. Now you're reaping what you sowed. You think I'm going to hand over my hard-earned money so Robyn can keep living like a queen while the rest of us scrape by? No way. But it's not just about her. It's about the kids.
Kody argued.
We all have kids, Janelle shot back. You just forgot about most of them. Her words left him speechless. The aftermath. After both meetings ended in rejection, Kody returned to his car and sat there for what felt like hours, staring blankly at the dashboard. He'd never felt so alone. Robyn called him repeatedly, asking if he'd secured the money. He ignored her calls at first, then finally answered just to tell her the truth. They both said no. Robyn's sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line said it all. What are we going to do? She asked. But Kody didn't have an answer. A humbling experience. Over the next few weeks, Kody scrambled to find a solution. He called friends, distant relatives, even business contacts, anyone who might lend him money. But word had already spread about his situation, and no one was willing to take the risk. Meanwhile, Robyn grew increasingly bitter, blaming Mary and Janelle for abandoning the family. But deep down, even she knew the truth. They had only refused to clean up a mess she and Kody had made together. One night, Kody stood on the edge of Coyote Pass, looking out at the barren land that was supposed to be his legacy. The wind whipped around him, cold and unrelenting, and for the first time in years, he truly felt the weight of his mistakes. The children speak. As the news of Kody's financial woes spread, his children began to weigh in. Gabriel, one of Janelle's sons, posted a cryptic message on social media. Funny how some people expect you to save them after spending years pretending you don't exist. Madison, Janelle's daughter, was more direct. Maybe if he'd been a father to all his kids instead of just Robyn's, he wouldn't be in this position. Even Leon, Mary's child, wrote, "Choices have consequences." These public statements only fueled the media frenzy surrounding the family. Paparazzi camped outside Robyn's house, capturing photos of moving trucks, tense phone calls, and tear-streaked faces. Robyn's meltdown. Robyn, who had always managed to maintain her composure in public, finally cracked. One day, she was photographed sobbing uncontrollably in her driveway, shouting at Kody over the phone. "You promised me this would never happen," she screamed, loud enough for neighbors and cameras to hear. Kody arrived shortly after, looking haggard and defeated. He tried to comfort her, but she pulled away, muttering something about how everyone was right about us. A moment of clarity. It wasn't until he saw the pain in Robyn's children's eyes, the confusion, the fear, that Kody finally admitted the truth to himself. He had failed. Not just financially, but as a husband, a father, and a leader. He had let his obsession with Robyn blind him to the needs of his other wives and children. He had ignored their warnings, dismissed their feelings, and now, here he was alone, broke, and begging for help from the very people he'd hurt most. The long road to redemption. With no money and no options left, Kody finally did what he should have done years ago. He asked his wives and children, not for money, but for forgiveness. He called a family meeting at Coyote Pass. Everyone showed up, though many wore skeptical expressions. Standing in front of them, Kody spoke from the heart. "I've failed you all. I let my pride, my ego, and my feelings for Robyn cloud my judgment. I took you for granted. I hurt you. And I'm sorry." The silence that followed was deafening. Then Janelle spoke. "Sorry doesn't fix everything, Kody, but it's a start." Mary nodded slowly. "You have a lot of work to do." Christine, who had moved on and married David Woolley, simply said, "I hope you find peace." Even some of the kids offered tentative smiles, though it was clear trust would take time to rebuild. Robyn's decision. Robyn, however, was less forgiving. She stood next to Kody, her arms crossed, tears streaming down her face. "You ruined everything," she whispered. "You promised me we'd be a team, but you chose them over me." With that, she turned and walked away, her children trailing behind her. In the weeks and months that followed, Kody made small but meaningful changes. He sold Robyn's house and moved into a modest apartment. He took on odd jobs to pay down his debts. He started spending time with all of his kids, not just Robyn's. He began attending therapy sessions with Janelle and Mary, hoping to rebuild their trust. He even reached out to Christine and David, apologizing for the way he treated her during their marriage. For the first time in decades, Kody understood what it meant to be truly humbled. He learned that love couldn't be bought with expensive houses or gifts, that respect couldn't be demanded, and that trust, once broken, took time to mend. He learned that being a father meant being there for all of his children, not just the ones who lived under Robyn's roof. And he learned that being a husband meant treating each wife with equal love and respect, not playing favorites. It wasn't easy, but slowly, the Brown family began to heal. Janelle and Mary allowed Kody back into their lives, though neither was interested in rekindling a romantic relationship. They focused on co-parenting and maintaining a healthy friendship. Christine and David continued to build their new life together, though they occasionally included Kody in family gatherings for the sake of the kids. Even Robyn, after some time and reflection, reached out to Kody, not to reconcile romantically, but to maintain a cordial relationship for the sake of her children. Kody Brown's fall from grace was both public and painful, but it was also a turning point. In losing the financial support of Mary and Janelle, he was forced to confront the consequences of his choices. He was forced to take responsibility for the damage he'd done to his wives, his children, and himself. And while the road to redemption was long and uncertain, Kody finally began walking it, one step, one apology, one act of humility at a time. Sister wives. Robyn's daughter Brenna mimics her mother. Fans troll her for the same, crying behavior. In the quiet town of Flagstaff, where the air was still and the mountains loomed in the distance, another chapter of the Brown family saga unfolded, and this time, it wasn't just Kody or Robyn at the center of the drama. It was Brenna, Robyn's daughter, who, for better or worse, found herself in the spotlight. Brenna, who had grown up largely shielded from the cameras compared to some of her older siblings, suddenly became the talk of social media when a clip of her went viral. In it, she was seen breaking down in tears, much like her mother had done countless times before, and pleading emotionally about the family situation. What should have been an ordinary moment of vulnerability turned into a social media storm, with fans of sister wives mocking her, trolling her, and accusing her of being just like her mother. The clip that sparked it all. It began innocently enough. A short clip aired during a new season of Sister Wives. The family had gathered at Coyote Pass to discuss what to do with the land. The conversation grew tense as Kody, Janelle, and even Christine voiced frustrations about the years of inaction. Robyn, as usual, began crying halfway through the discussion, claiming she just wanted the family to be happy again and that everyone was ganging up on her. As the argument continued, the cameras caught a shot of Brenna, now a teenager, standing off to the side. She suddenly burst into tears and, between sobs, said, "You all are being so mean to my mom. She's just trying to keep the family together. Why can't you all stop being so hateful and just love each other?" The room fell silent. Even the producers, who usually kept their distance, looked taken aback. The internet reacts. Within hours of the episode airing, clips of Brenna's outburst flooded social media. Fans quickly drew parallels between her and Robyn, dubbing her Little Robyn, Robyn 2.0, and Cryin' Brenna. One viral tweet read, "Brenna got that tear duct gene strong. Robyn must have passed down the ability to cry on command." Another said, "Oh great. Another generation of emotional manipulation. Sister Wives, the sequel." On Instagram, memes comparing Brenna and Robyn crying side by side circulated widely, with captions like mother, like daughter. Someone get these two a tissue sponsorship. The backlash was swift and, at times, cruel. Some fans argued it was unfair to attack a young girl for expressing her emotions. Others defended her, saying she was only reacting the way she'd been taught. But others were ruthless, insisting that Brenna's behavior was evidence of how Robyn's influence had shaped her children into emotional manipulators. Inside Brenna's world, those close to the family say Brenna has always been sensitive and protective of her mother. Growing up, she watched as her mother became the target of her sister wives' frustrations and endured endless judgment from the public. To Brenna, Robyn was a hero, the one who held the family together when everyone else seemed determined to tear it apart. Family insiders reveal that Brenna often cried herself to sleep as a child, worried about the tension between her mother and the other wives. "She's always felt like she had to defend her mom," one source explained. "She's seen Robyn cry so much over the years that it just became normal to her. She learned early on that expressing sadness was how you got attention and how you showed you cared." Kody's response. Kody reportedly watched the episode and the social media reaction in silence before finally speaking to producers. "That's my daughter," he said, his jaw tight. "And I won't let anyone attack her. She has more courage than any of those so-called fans sitting behind their keyboards." He later posted on his Instagram, "Brenna is a beautiful, sensitive soul who loves her family deeply. If that's something to mock, then shame on you." Robyn speaks out. Robyn, unsurprisingly, was heartbroken over the trolling of her daughter. During a follow-up interview for the show, she broke down in tears again, saying, "When I see people attacking my baby for standing up for me, it just destroys me. She's just a kid. She's hurting because I'm hurting, and now they're making her the villain too. I can't believe people can be so cruel." She then addressed the camera directly. "Leave my children out of this. If you have a problem with me, fine. But don't drag them into it. Don't punish them for loving their mother." Fans doubled down. Unfortunately, Robyn's emotional plea did little to stop the tide of mockery. Some fans argued that Brenna was old enough to be held accountable for inserting herself into the adult conflict. Others insisted Robyn was using her daughter as a shield to deflect criticism away from herself. One fan commented on Reddit, "If Robyn didn't cry every 5 seconds, maybe her daughter wouldn't think that's how you solve problems." Another wrote, "Sorry, but if you raise your kids to believe manipulation equals love, then don't be surprised when people point it out." The other wives react. Interestingly, the other wives had mixed reactions to the situation. Christine, ever the peacemaker these days, expressed sympathy for Brenna. "She's just a kid. She doesn't deserve this," Christine said in an interview. "I don't agree with how Robyn handles things, but Brenna doesn't need to be caught in the middle. My heart breaks for her." Janelle, however, was more critical. "This is what happens when you raise your children to believe the whole world is against them," Janelle remarked. "We all have a part in this family drama, but teaching your kids to cry and accuse everyone else instead of taking responsibility, that's not helping them." Mary remained quiet publicly, but insiders say she was seen rolling her eyes while watching the episode. The children chime in. The Brown children also weighed in, with many expressing their frustration privately. Gabriel reportedly told friends, "We all went through stuff, but you don't see us crying on camera every 5 minutes. Brenna needs to toughen up." Madison tweeted, People need to stop attacking her, but also, someone needs to teach her that crying doesn't fix everything. Even Dayton, Brenna's older half-brother, posted cryptically, "Sometimes silence is more powerful than tears." A family meeting. As tensions mounted, Kody called for a family meeting at Coyote Pass to address the situation. Everyone showed up, Christine with David in tow, Janelle with her boys, Mary quietly taking a seat in the corner, and Robyn arriving last with Brenna clinging to her arm. Kody began by slamming the trolls online and demanding that the families stand united against them. "We can fight with each other all we want, but we don't let outsiders attack our kids," he roared. Christine nodded, but added gently, "Kody, no one here attacked her. But you can't control what people on the internet say. What we can do is teach Brenna how to handle it better." Janelle chimed in, "If you want her to stop being mocked, maybe stop encouraging the crying as a response to everything. Teach her to stand on her own 2 feet." Robyn burst into tears at that, claiming everyone was blaming her for her daughter's pain. Brenna also began crying, which only fueled more eye rolls from the group. Brenna speaks. But then, to everyone's surprise, Brenna spoke up herself. Through her tears, she said, "I know everyone thinks I'm weak because I cry. But I cry because I care. I love my mom. I love this family. And when I see people hurting her, it hurts me too. Maybe I don't know how to express it the right way yet, but at least I feel something." Her words hung in the air, soft but powerful. For a moment, even her harshest critics fell silent. Moving forward, after the family meeting, Kody and Robyn agreed to enroll Brenna in counseling to help her cope with her emotions and the public scrutiny. Robyn also began working with Brenna on how to stand up for herself without relying solely on tears. Brenna herself started a private Instagram account where she shared poetry and reflections about her feelings, a more constructive outlet for her emotions. One post read, "People say I cry too much. Maybe they don't cry enough. At least my heart works." It garnered thousands of supportive comments, with even some of her previous critics admitting she showed maturity beyond her years. Fan perspective shifts. Over time, the public began to soften toward Brenna. While some trolls continued to mock her, many others started defending her. On Reddit, one user posted, "We've been too hard on her. She's a kid growing up in a mess of adults making bad choices. Cut her some slack." Others noted that her willingness to speak her mind showed she was learning to stand up without hiding behind her mother. Brenna's tearful outburst and the ensuing social media storm served as a harsh reminder of how much the Brown children have endured. For over a decade, they've grown up in front of cameras, caught in the crossfire of their parents' dysfunction. Brenna's behavior may mirror her mother's, but it also reflects a young woman trying to find her voice in a chaotic family. If there's one lesson here, it's that children often become what they see, but they can also learn, grow, and change. Brenna may have inherited her mother's tears, but perhaps she can forge her own path, one where those tears become a strength, not a weakness. Months later, the family remains fractured but functioning. Robyn continues to defend her daughter fiercely, but has toned down her own emotional outbursts. Kody, surprisingly, has taken a step back, letting the women and kids find their own ways forward. Brenna has started taking classes at a local community college and reportedly wants to study psychology so she can help kids like herself navigate complicated families. On her Instagram, she recently posted a photo of herself smiling with the caption, "Still crying sometimes, but also laughing now. Learning it's okay to be both." The story of Brenna and her tears is not just about a mother and daughter who cry too much, it's about a family that cries too little. It's easy for outsiders to judge, to mock, to turn human emotions into memes. But behind those tears is a young girl who has carried the weight of her mother's pain, her father's indifference, and a world of strangers who never bothered to understand her. In the end, perhaps Brenna will teach all of them, her family, her fans, and even her critics, that crying isn't a weakness. It's a sign of a heart that refuses to harden.